Welcome to the Rethink Leadership podcast with me, Jeremy Blaine. I interview leaders, experts and business professionals from around the world who are bringing leadership principles and know-how into the digitally driven 21st century workplace, with focus firmly on the how-to rather than the what. Each episode is in aid of a charity chosen by my guests, and since 2020, we've made donations to over 80 global and local causes. Welcome to the Rethink Leadership podcast with my two guests today, Isaac Getz and Laurent Marbacher. Isaac Getz is a professor at the ESCP Business School, one of the world's top-ranked institutions with campuses in Paris, London, Berlin, Madrid and Torino. Previously, he was a visiting professor at Cornell and Stanford. He's perhaps best known as the co-author with Brian Carney of Freedom, Inc., a book translated into 15 languages and recognised as an international #1 bestseller and award-winning business book in France. Laurent is a trusted senior advisor working closely with global leaders, particularly from family businesses and startups. He engages in deep dialogues with CEOs both on their personal journey and on the transformation of their companies. Together, they've co-authored The Caring Company, How to Shift Business and the Economy for Good, to clearly show how businesses and leaders can choose to serve the common good as their #1 priority and still achieve high performance. We dive into the discussion about what makes a caring company, why it's important, and the steps to accelerate progress. This episode is in aid of Save the Children International, to which we've made a donation as a thank you to Isaac and Laurent for joining us. You can find out more at savethechildren.net. Welcome to the Rethink Leadership podcast. To both you, Isaac, and you, Laurent. Very pleased to have you. Very excited for this conversation. So I'm going to come straight to you, Isaac, please, to introduce yourself, your expertise, and your passion for leaders as being forces for good as much as for profit.
Thank you, Jeremy, for having us. So I'm an author, speaker. I'm a mentor to a select group of CEOs. And I'm a leadership professor at ESCP Business School with campuses in Paris, London, among others. Now, what my expertise is, I'd say transformational leadership. Since 2005, I studied in collaboration with my co-authors and colleagues, and Laurent is one of them, and observed over 100 companies and organizations which have been transformed into, to use your words, into a force for good for employees, for customers, for suppliers, and for the local communities. About my passion for leaders as being forces for good, right? That's what you ask. And as much as profit. Well, I will, in 1 minute, tell you one little story. You like stories? Yeah.
I love stories.
So in the early 2000s, together with Brian Carney, we went... No, it was not with Brian Carney, sorry, it was with Alan Robinson. We went to study a Belgian division of an American auto parts supplier, and to study things like, creativity of employees. But I was struck by two things. Number one, the manufacturing director, the number two of the company, he said that when he came in, he would spend about 80% of his time on acquiring equipment, capital investments, expenditures. And he was sitting in his chair very comfortably and asked us, how much time do you think I'm spending now of buying this 1 million machines? And we were surprised, maybe saying maybe 50, 30. He showed us, said 0 employees are buying. Say, what do you mean they're buying like 1 million machines? Yeah. And all I asked them is to make me a short list of 3 that they prefer. So they go to fairs, to Germany, to Italy, and so on. When they think that machine needs to be replaced. And they say, so what do you choose then? He said, always number one. He said, even the most expensive. Yeah, man, these guys, they know better, right? So that was one thing, surprising, right? And the second thing is that you don't believe probably, but I'm not doing much in the company. I don't serve much. And said, okay, how is that? You're number two. Said, let's go to shop floor. And so we enter the shop floor, and he said, choose the guy. So I'm kind of pointing to one guy that's working on a big machine. He comes there, he looks around, said, this chair shouldn't be there. And the guy is not looking at him, he's working on his machine and saying, this chair is in the right place for me. And even not turning his head. And this manufacturing director, he turns and says, so yeah, they're not listening to me. So what do you want me to do? So that was kind of a passion that was born out of this and several observations is how are these companies run, where the CEOs and top executives, they're not giving orders anymore. And obviously, what did they transform in the way the company was run before? This top-down subordination and control-based, that employees became the ones who make the right decisions and the right actions for the company. So that became my passion. And so then I worked on several business philosophies. So that's long, short answer.
Thank you very much for that, Isaac. And just going back almost to the beginning of what you started with, I'd just love your quick definition of what does it mean, transformational leadership?
Okay. I will maybe give even an etymological definition of that. Transformation means there's a word form. So you need to radically reshape, redesign, whatever you use, the organizational form, the way the company is run. Otherwise, it's change management, and sometimes it's very cosmetic. So in 30 seconds, these companies that they worked on that I named later, we will talk about it, perhaps liberated companies, they transform the traditional subordination and control based form of organization into the ones that are trust and responsibility based and freedom of action based organizations. So obviously you need to transform a lot of practices and a lot of structures so that that happens. And Laurent will probably talk also about the transformational leadership that is needed to build caring companies. It's something else. But I saw that you have questions about both. So I let Laurent maybe to tell more about these things.
Well, that's a great segue. Thank you very much to you, Laurent. Please introduce yourself and your expertise and why you feel some leaders need to lean into this greater good, as we're calling it, not just the bottom line.
Okay, thank you. Well, I've been more than 30 years now working alongside business leaders as an executive coach, as a team coach, but also as a designer and facilitator of leadership development programs. And my expertise is to create spaces for deep dialogues where people can pause, can reflect on the questions that truly matters, and dare to express also their best selves. And for instance, one of the programs I offer is called Let Your Soul Guide You, inspired by this song of Sting. And this title captures something many leaders are yearning for today, because in the kind of world we're living in, and because also of the volume of noise we have all around, it makes it difficult to hear one's little voice or inner voice. So in this context, listening to your soul, attending to the calling of your heart, and developing also genuine discernment capabilities, to me this is no longer a luxury, and there are essential leadership capabilities. So when leaders reconnect to themselves, to that deeper space within them, they often rediscover a part of them that is a sincere wish to contribute to something greater, to a wider good, a wish that sometimes it may have been obscured by pressure or targets or habit. So this is, to me, really the most encouraging message in our work is that doing good and doing well are not in opposition. They can, in fact, reinforce one another, provided that the order is right. Caring unconditionally comes first, and profit is regarded as a constraint and also as a consequence rather than the sole compass for decision making.
Yes, the first thing that you said there, that space is for dialogue and
Yeah,
expressing our best selves to uncover that almost we can call it purpose, that sincere wish to contribute to the greater good. I love the way that you put it, much better than me actually. And it's the first time actually on a podcast that we've had Sting mentioned, so congratulations
okay.
for that. I wasn't expecting that, but I really get that point. And it's often not having the time in the age where speed is the competitive currency of the day, or one of them at least,
Yeah,
where we need to do this more perhaps. And this really you both get into your fabulous new book, The Caring Company, and congratulations to you both. And Laurent, I'd like to stay with you for this and ask you why you wrote the book and how it will help leaders today everywhere understand the power of care, not being separate to earning profit, but actually being a part of the whole same thing as you just said on the business for them, for their customers and their people.
yeah. Well, we've had a long and fruitful collaboration with Isaac, and Isaac, as he mentioned, coined the term liberated companies in an earlier book to describe organizations built on trust and freedom and responsibility. So over the years, I have supported a number of leaders in making this substantial shift from traditional hierarchies to self-managed teams. But yet, at times, it seemed as though creating a wonderful workplace for employees risked, becoming an end in itself, at the expense of a wider sense of purpose and that reaches beyond the boundaries of the company. So, and at the same time, I also found myself puzzled by the proliferation of notions like triple bottom line, extra financial criteria, ESG, B Corp, etc., where we saw with Isaac that there's a lot of greenwashing and kind of blurring of concept and practices that all this is too common. So
And social washing.
yeah, you're right. It's green and social washing. So to put it bluntly, as they say in Chile, where I once lived, they say mucho ruido y pocas nueces, which means a lot of noise but very few nuts. And so we chose with Isaac to look more closely and to seek out companies that cultivate truly exceptional relationships with their customers, with their suppliers, with the local communities. In fact, with all the people at the gate of the companies, because you can have a personal, authentic relationship with your employees, but what happens with the people at the gate, the people you see face to face, and you can look in the eyes. So when we encountered them, it felt to us rather like Darwin identifying a kind of new species, and which we came to call caring companies.
Wow, it is, yes, truly Darwin-esque for you then, Faz, this journey of discovery from the liberated
Yeah,
company to the caring company.
it's almost it's the same time approximately that we didn't go on Beagle, but we traveled all over the world from California to Japan. So we don't want to compare ourselves to Darwin, of course, but we did quite a lot of travel.
Yeah, well, I can see that in the book and with the case studies, and I'd love to come back to you on this, Isaac,
Mm.
as it's you have so much rich data in there as well as the examples. So May I ask you, as you journeyed from your previous works into then this new work of the Caring Company, what most surprised you when writing this book, following the interviews with the companies and leaders who are forces for this greater good, and what can we all learn for particularly those leaders who aren't on that page yet?
Mm. I think now I'm doing it like a posteriori, right? Thinking about all these people all these leaders that we met. But the most surprising now for me is that they simply exist. In fact, they shouldn't. They shouldn't. Why they shouldn't? Because they, and in a way, do the opposite of what the principles of the capitalistic firm requires to do. And these principles are two. The one is profit maximizing, and we mentioned that, but this is not perhaps the most fundamental focus of our book. The other principle is what is called transactional relationships. The business conducts and builds its relationships with its customers, suppliers, and the local communities based on self-interested transactions. If I don't get something from you that I'm interested in, I'm not entering any relation with you. If I do get, then we are in transaction. And the other side is, by the way, doing the same, right? And it includes local communities, right? I want to open a plant or a supermarket, so I will discuss with local authorities for some subsidies, for some discount price on the land and whatever. So this is how it works. Interestingly, since you are from Great Britain, I don't know whether you're from Scotland, but obviously you take, I think, ownership of Adam Smith, right? Of being of one of the most important economists of all times. And Adam Smith, who was, before he was economist, was a moral philosopher. And he stayed, by the way, as such. And he was deeply disturbed by the principles upon which merchants, that's how they were called at that time, not capitalists, conduct their business. And he said that it would rather be, or it would be much better that would conduct business as on the principle of like we deal with friends, right? Trying to take care of them. But he considered that unrealistic, because how many friends can you have? Maybe dozens. And when you open a big shop, or I don't know, whatever, you sell cotton, then you have thousands and thousands. How can we do that? And in fact, these leaders, they said that we can try to do that. We can try to treat our customers, our suppliers, and the people from the local communities as they were our friends. And what does it mean to be a friend? And I'm finishing here, is if you, let's say you have a country house, there are a lot of country houses, right, in UK, and you invite them in for a weekend. You don't say, look, you're welcome here and you're a friend unless you don't cost me too much. Or unless I get a good return on my investment in you during this weekend. You don't say that, right? You say, feel like at home, at your home, right? So what do you provide to your friend? An unconditional care. It's not conditioned by any interest, any return, nothing. Now, we're talking about business, and the challenge is that's why there is a surprise. Why is it so amazing, these companies? That they remain capitalistic businesses. They conduct business, and every one of their competitors, they sell, they buy, they deal with local communities. But they do it from the perspective of taking unconditional care of everyone with whom they conduct these daily activities. with the customers. So give you maybe one just example, Handelsbanken, which you know probably. I don't know if you think that it's a German bank, it's a Swedish. I know that British think it's a German bank. And they are very present in UK. They say that our advisors in the bank have to deal with the customers as a family doctor or family nurse deals with the patients. Only they take care of the physical health. We take care of the financial health, and we do everything to keep our customers healthy. So this is something that is amazing. And the last sentence, what is even more amazing is that these companies, while not trying to pursue their self-interest and profits, make more profits than their competitors. And we have a lot of data on that.
Yeah, the movement from transactional relationships almost as barriers to trusted friends with unconditional care, as you talk about. I like that. It's almost moving from just using our business head to our business head and heart. And the two
Exactly.
things work together, right? Is that right? Yeah. Yeah.
Laurent will talk about hearts. We talk a lot about heart.
Okay, right. Well, I'll come back. We can come back to that. Please note that, Laurent, for when I come
Yeah.
back to you.
Okay.
Because I think maybe I can pick up that with you now, Laurent, being that we're mentioning it. Then what is the importance of having heart as a big part of the business brain as much as the head?
Yeah, actually, we have a whole chapter about this particular point, and we don't talk about, the mindset shift that leaders are supposed to have if they want to become caring leaders. But we talk about the heart set shift because it's deeper and it comes from a different place than just changing some, views on the world, etc. So one of the leaders we have in the book explains that very, very clearly. He says, for years, he felt just as though he had two selves, one professional self, the business self, as you would say, and the personal self. And stepping into his role, as a force for good, kind of unifying these two sides made him live his life, as just one life, these two selves coming together. And the real challenge for him, became to be the same person as the one he was at home. So this kind of unifying movement is far from, straightforward. In the book, there's the story of this Japanese CEO of a major listed pharmaceutical company. He lost, I'd say it in French, 20 kilos. I think that's something like 9 pounds, British pounds, in just a few weeks because of the series of non-compliance scandals. And this illustrates, how demanding this path can be. And because of this personal crisis, then he undertook a major shift in the definition of this company's purpose, and this shift leading to other innovations. So, what
Laurent, excuse me, I interrupt you. Just maybe tell what is this shift? Before it was profit
yeah,
maximizing, and it became.
and it became alleviating the suffering of patients and their families. So that might seem quite very light, a very slight shift, but at the end of the day, it changes everything in the mindset and the heart set of the leader, of course, but of all employees who start to think about their profession, about their activities very differently. For instance, in this company, they would spend at least 1% of their time. If you're an accountant or if you're a factory manager, you spend 1% of your time, which means 1 or 2 days per year, really being with elders, because this company is particularly attending patients with Alzheimer's and this kind of illness. So they end up with a kind of personal understanding and heart understanding of whom they're serving, not just the salesperson or even, some research and development will have some focus groups with these people. No, it's the whole company who is involved in that. So that's one of the shifts we have noticed in this company, for instance. So what I wanted to say also is that whatever the reasons for this personal shift in the leader, the circumstances may vary quite a lot from one leader to another, but it always involves questioning very widely accepted assumptions and long entrenched behaviors. And we draw, attention to several of these beliefs and behaviors in the book. So that's really what we mean by the hard set shift.
It's very clear to me, and it's almost moving from what we would see as a clear old school traditional business vision to more an ambition which is rooted in purpose or our core values. Like actually, it's about alleviating suffering for our patients and so on.
Yeah.
And actually, that drives that not just a different heart set, but the mindset around how we can innovate differently, how we do things. And as Isaac, you said before, is that is simply doing things better, and it's impacting the bottom line. It's pretty clear it is,
So, Jeremy, I wouldn't. Sorry to interrupt. I know it's not polite. In UK, in France, this is good. It means you're interested. But but it's not so common sense. It's not so common sense. We quite often get with Laurent this like little, like strange look, oh, okay, so they're so generous, so empathic. And so this is like a guy's a recipe for like failure, right? What you suggest us. Because people think most of the time that it's like throwing money, and there's some people will abuse of that, and so on and so on. And it's very important point here. They are not doing that to make money. And there is no straight, direct link. We talk with Laurent about obliquity, which is a theory by John Kay, right? The London School of Economics professor, right? But there is a non-direct, oblique way that leads from the unconditional care to the higher profits than the traditional competitors. And this should be explained, and I explained it in one sentence, which then will ring with the leaders that listen to us. If you provide the unconditional care to your customer through your business processes, will this customer come back? The famous return, the grail, right, of business, the return customer. Is it the likelihood is higher or lower? The answer is higher. Well, he or she comes back, will it buy the same amount or more? Typically more. To how many people will he speak or she speak about your company? So all that leads to what is called the top line, right? How about suppliers? Everyone knows, at least I've heard it in many Japanese companies, the supplier's problem is not supplier's problem, it's your problem. So how many suppliers will go an extra mile or deliver you tomorrow when in the contract they have to deliver the next week because it's urgent for you? How many? If you take unconditional care of them, and if you say, okay, you're now a supplier, tell me how we can serve you, how can we help you to become a prosperous business? Because we work together, we win. So these people will go an extra mile. They even go an extra 100 miles for you, but not to others. Are you winning? You are winning. And the local communities become extremely supportive of you, right? Because they really see that you unconditionally care about the citizens there, about the well-being of the community. So altogether it leads, but again, it's oblique. It's not a business model. And this is a philosophical point. Those who jump into the caring company because they think, wow, a wonderful way to make more money and to look good. This is a dead end. The money is never the goal. The profit is a consequence of trying single-mindedly provide unconditional care to your customers, suppliers, and the local community. And that's our book. That is what is our book about. That's what new in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if
go on, Laurent. Yeah.
If I may add something, this relates back also to what we call the heart set shift, because it's a bet, and it's a bet on life. You know, you do that because you think that's what you have to do, and then you believe that life will reward you somehow at some point. But it's not a mathematical equation or an Excel sheet that tells you that.
Yeah, I agree. And what resonates here is first of all, is the way that you're both talking is we're talking customer first, we're talking community. And I'd like to put the microscope inside now, because I guess that is also one of the ingredients that leads to the greater consequence here as well. When we have companies and leaders who have a great heart set, turning their back on command and control structures of the past, looking into the freedom and responsibility based ones. So maybe if I can come back to you, Isaac, as you started this point, what is the difference between those two when we're looking with an internal lens? And what are the proven benefits to come out of the organizations who have moved to the freedom and responsibility based ones?
Okay, to our listeners, I want just to point that liberated companies is a different philosophy of the caring companies. So I know, Jeremy, that you're private and you read the things, right? So you're interested also in that. But again, those are two different, although related business philosophies. And the liberated company is the one where the majority of employees enjoy the complete responsibility and freedom of action to do their best for the company's purpose, which is the total opposite of the traditional competitors, where many employees know what is the best thing to do for the company, but they have no right to do that. They have to ask for permission, or there's some procedure that forbids them, and so on and so on. And meantime, the customer suffers, then the company suffers, and so on. So the main benefit is this, but it's important to understand that those leaders who decided to do that, and today probably I know probably close to 100 of such companies all over the world, including in the UK, it's very important. They did it not, again, to make more money. They really fundamentally cared about the employees that come to work into their company. Again, if I talk about Handelsbanken, because this is one of the examples that is kind of both liberated company and a caring company. And he started, by the way, somewhere in this, Maslow and for higher needs of employees. And he said, I want to build a company where employee every morning when he wakes up, he enjoys coming to work there. He's not coming because he must. He's coming because he wants. And once he's there, he also willing to do his best or her best for the company. So obviously, if you create such an environment, instead of 9-to-5 mentality, you understand, clock in, clock out, minimum to give minimum to get maximum out of the company, and so on. Again, by the way, transactional relationship in a way, right? Between employee and the company, you create a company where employees basically they are willing to contribute. They're willing to do their best, and then you give them this right. So they give their freedom of action and responsibility. It doesn't mean anarchy, right? The responsible people, they know the constraints. They know that the things cost money, that the customers have to be supplied by certain date, and so on. But within that, there is a huge discretion and latitude to act for the frontline people. And the difference, obviously, as you can imagine, is tremendous. Instead of saying, I have to ask my manager, or sorry, it's 5 p.m., we have to stop our customer service, they are always thinking, what can I do and what action can I take to serve the company's purpose? So that's the things about liberated company. But I refer people, and you'll probably write down there, to the book, what's called Freedom Inc., has been translated in 15 languages, but written originally in English, so it can be read by our listeners.
Great. Well, we have listeners all around the world, so that's good news as well. Just replaying what you're saying there, I'm making notes that saying, this is the motivation. The primary motivation is beyond money, but the consequence is obliquely greater success through more loyal customers, greater stakeholder loyalty as well, but also this glue together with the people internally as well. It provides almost like a 3 times kicker to that success if you get it right, presumably. So Laurent, maybe if I can come to you then, and with that in mind, I'm going to come squarely back to the heart set here and say, well, what are the other examples of leaders or organizations who are getting this right, heavily embracing their heart set and being driven by that? In terms of the consequences, but also on the flip side of that coin, what's the cost for old school leaders who are just saying, you know what, I'm just going to continue what I did in the past. I'm going to do what I do, etc. Command, control, demand, all of those kind of things.
Yes, one fantastic example we have in the book is a leading French company called LSDH, which actually started with this example, where it comes to a decision making, and we have this example of it's
private label producer of milk and juices.
Of packaged, yes, package.
Number one
drinks.
In France, 2 billion euros company.
Yeah. So LSDH, they're not in the salad business, but once there was a salad business to be sold to a large agro-industrial group. And Emmanuel Vasnex, over a weekend, reflected on this potential purchase of this business. And he said, okay, this has nothing to do with our business. But if this salad company is bought by this other business, then maybe there are going to be layoffs. There are going to be people from the families of the employees of LSDH who might suffer from that. And actually, the local community can suffer from that. And it was amazing because over the weekend, he decided to buy that company without any business plan, without any strategic justification to say, oh, yes, this makes sense, on a business point of view. No, he just cared for the local community and took that decision. And just afterwards, then there was a strategic sense or a consequence that can be useful for the business, but that was just after he made that decision. So that's another example. He made that decision with his heart, not just with a kind of Excel sheet or anything like that. So that's one example, taking an opportunity like this because it's coherent with the whole philosophy of this leader. So coming back to your question, to us, the price that more traditional command and control leaders pay for not, evolving in this kind of mindset or heart set is very, very high because at a basic human level, it fuels physical, mental health problem for the leaders themselves and their teams, because of chronic stress. And also at the organizational level, it undermines the ability to adapt, to learn from experience, and to retain talented people. And that's also something very important because especially younger employees, repeatedly say in surveys that they are looking for learning opportunities and a sense of purpose in their work. So this is an additional, I would say, argument or way of explaining why these companies are are also more successful in terms of the the financial, the profit, because they have the best people inside, and they can keep these people.
And that's it, isn't it? It's not just the attraction, it's the retention of
Absolutely.
that talent when you deliver your promise.
Yeah.
And people feel good about that, and they feel a word that we don't often use, happy, and happy to contribute. Well, it's been fascinating listening to you both, and one of the outputs from this podcast is always to try and move the dial and move to action for those who are tuning in. So I'd like to come to both of you and start with you, Laurent, if I might, to ask, okay, for those leaders listening to this and that it really resonates, these messages, how can they move forward? What are maybe one or two steps that they can take to move forward, and how will they measure progress?
Okay. Well, to us, a good place to start, talking about this heart-set shift would be to check in your diary and review the people you have met recently. And you just ask this question: how many of them did you treat as means to your own ends? And how many did you treat as human beings you could care about? So this may sound oversimplified, but if you are honest with yourself, then you may be surprised by how often you instrumentalize others in your daily interactions. So the proportion of these two attitudes, to me, is a good way to measure progress. Another key action would be, and that's more at the organizational level, it would be to identify and to eliminate any processes, metrics, or systems that prevent your employees from caring to their customer, for their suppliers, or for the local community. This requires, of course, a significant effort, and it has to be undertaken by with the involvement of all the employees. But the reward will be great. Not only you will simplify things, but you will allow the creativity and these human capabilities to flourish and to take care of the others. Huh? And so one way to measure progress there could be to ask your employees to rate their freedom to care genuinely on a scale from 0 to 10. And then you can measure progress on this kind of scale to see if they have more freedom to care genuinely instead of complying with the processes or with all the limits that the company has done. So with all the elements presented in the book, however, we think, Isaac and I, that we believe that there is no single model. It's not a model, as Isaac said, it's more a philosophy. And then each leader and each company will find their own way.
Yeah, and it resonates with what you've said all along, is that the movement from mindset to heart set, and the heart set shift, focusing on that first. I think that's a great piece of advice, actually. And the freedom to care diagnostic, I do like that. That's very catchy, very catchy indeed, and something that we don't talk about too much in traditional business, let's say. Isaac, maybe inviting you into this, are there any points you could add in terms of small right actions that we can take moving forward and measure them correctly?
Small, no. But the big ones, yes. And so I will maybe continue with what Laurent mentioned and frame it a little bit differently. I think that a head of a company that seeks models and methods is not a leader. Leader is someone who seeks to inspire, to create followers. And so together with in relation to what we are writing and talking about, the caring company and previously the liberated company, what leaders seek very often is to watch, observe, learn about other inspiring examples, companies, so that these inspirations from outside help him to build inside of his or her company something inspiring too. Remember, we want employees to come, right? To enjoy coming to work. We want employees to enjoy providing unconditional freedom, right? So this is something that he has to build with them, right? And not to seek a model that he will copy alone or with some consultants, right? To be very concrete, for example, holacracy was very often mentioned, at least in France, as being the model to create a liberated company. Again, this falls on probably good ears of some executives, but leaders that we met with, Laurent, they don't like it. They say our company is unique, and we will build and inspire from some of the examples that talk to us, not many, not everyone, but some do, and we'll take from them some things and we'll invent some other things and we'll create something, and it will be evolving because it's organic, it's not mechanical. Because trying to bring a model, it's again repeating the Taylor or some other stuff and creating some mechanism, right, that will be rigid, okay, or employee-oriented but rigid. No, it's organic, right? And they do it through trial and error, and you evolve it. So now I'll give you one example, maybe to finish. A Canadian company that we met, that is both, again, the case of being both liberated and the caring company. 2017, the owner of this company, at that time a CEO, Steve Bussière, who realized that he's limited as a leader. But he was very much inspired by the idea of, at that time, liberated company. So he found a guy inside of the company that he felt has a strong leadership potential, Dominique Tremblay. And he said, you're talking to me about all this kind of things, and you're a big philosopher. So are you interested to build a liberated company? And he said, what is it? So watch some YouTube. And that's all the instructions that they got, right? And so he was put into this chair, into this seat of the CEO, and started to build it by simply listening. Interesting. He went for 6 months and asked people, what are your needs? What are your needs to live a full life? And this is an industrial heavy metal company, right? It's not heavy metal rock group, right? But heavy metal business. And from there, with them, he started to transform all kind of ways of working, right? Practices, so that the people can live fuller lives. And I'm finishing maybe with something that took maybe, 3 years or something, including the COVID, you imagine, and everything, and the period, and they won, there's this regional chamber of commerce, right? Imagine, I don't know, in Yorkshire, okay? And so they give every year the different awards, the best manufacturer, the best business, the best something, maybe there are, I don't know, 7 or 8 awards. And they won, it's the first company in history, won 3 awards, one company, the same year. And then everyone applauds, and he goes to the stage, and he has to deliver this speech. And he looks at them, and he says that there is no contradiction between love and performance. The room of whatever 500, business people went silent. And everyone thinks about whatever they think, right? About love and performance. But then they exploded 15 or 20 seconds later in applause. And he explained, love is another word, right? It's his word about the unconditional care. Because we often, to whom we provide unconditional care, our children, right? Our partners. That's what we think. Maybe some people think about pets, I don't know, whatever. But we're not thinking in these terms about business, right? And business, on the other hand, we think always about performance, right? Financial performance, right? Business performance. See, there's no contradiction. On the opposite. And then he told about their journey of how he built the relationship based, we call it unconditional care. He would say maybe about on love, right? To employees, to customers. That's how they deal. Just give you one example. They're not participating in tenders. There's a lot of tenders in their business. They say, we're not interested in transactions. We want to build a relationship where really we can take care of you fully. And people come back and they're thriving, right? So this is, I would say, something that leaders can do is to think about some of the contradictions that they believe exist in the world. And if they change, and they say there's no contradiction of providing unconditional care to my employees, and as a consequence, becoming a successful business, and the same to customers, and the same to suppliers, and not seeking a model, but asking yourself, are you a leader? If you are, don't go for a model, don't go for a method. Build together with your employees something that is unique for you and inspire you. That's my last word.
And what a way to end. I mean, this inextricable link between love and performance, or deep care and performance. And going back to the original start of that, where the gentleman was going into asking the simple question, what are your needs to lead a full life, and how then do we do something different? It's an intensely human endeavor. Gentlemen, I can't thank you enough for joining me. And I know many of those tuning in will want to get hold of your book, find out more about how you can help them, and connect to continue the discussion. How do they do that?
Well, first they can buy the book either on Amazon or at the publishers, Wiley. But then we also have a website. I have it here. You can watch it. And particularly, we suggest that they take a caring company quiz that can also have them reflect on different questions and see where their company stands with regards to this philosophy and practice. And then we also have a LinkedIn group, which is called the Caring Company Book. So they can also join, and we have several activities and webinars and possibilities to join that community, because at the end of the day, it's also by sharing, by having dialogues with other leaders, that they can also reflect and have their own philosophy and make this happen in their own organization.
Thank you so much. Well, just leaves me to say, Laurent, Isaac, thank you very much for joining me. It's been a wonderful discussion.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you for your enthusiasm and great questions. And hopefully together we'll bring, and that is something that drives us, right, Laurent? We want to bring more leaders and inspire more leaders into trying to find their own way how to build caring companies. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to the Rethink Leadership podcast with me, Jeremy Blaine. Please like, comment, and support us on your favourite platform, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you can watch as well as listen to each episode.